Recently, the fields have no longer been as peaceful as before. By day, everything still looks green and thriving, but after just one night, the soil is torn apart, plants bitten through, an entire corner of the garden turned into a battlefield. Overlapping footprints of all sizes, this isn't one animal, but a whole herd. There was no other choice. We had to act, not to hunt, but to protect the crops, to protect livelihoods. The traps were set the evening before. Bait was placed along their familiar paths. Everything was carefully prepared, and what happened overnight meant that at first light today, our priority was to check the traps. The first cage appeared at the edge of the field. Inside was a small group. We quickly noticed something. Their fur wasn't the same, black, brown, even striped. This wasn't random. It showed that multiple groups had merged, a sign the herd was growing, expanding its range. Give it a few more weeks, and this place would become their permanent feeding ground. Inside the cage, they pressed together, breathing heavily, unable to escape. We moved to another trap. Some of the boars inside reacted violently. They slammed their heads into the steel frame again and again. Others behaved differently, slipping to the side, using their snouts to probe each bar, searching for the smallest gap to break free. This is something many people overlook. Not every animal reacts the same way. The steel bars rattled, echoing sharp metallic clangs. This was no longer feeding behavior. This was survival instinct. In another corner, a smaller trap had also been triggered. Inside was a single adult and a few juveniles. The confined space prevented them from gaining momentum or coordinating like they could in the open. This is the key point. You don't need a large trap. Just the right placement is enough to hold even the strongest animal. The result from last night made one thing clear. The traps worked, not by chance, but through careful calculation, placing traps along movement paths, dividing positions, baiting according to the herd's habits. But we couldn't stop yet. The traps remained. The bait was replenished. Tonight will be the next test. Slam. The trap door dropped shut. Both were caught, thrashing inside. A good sign. The herd was beginning to lose its caution at the first point. Not long after, and another trap set nearby, a different adult appeared, larger, more cautious. It circled, paused, stepped back, then moved forward along the bait trail. The moment it stepped inside, slam, the second trap snapped shut. Chaos erupted inside, with its size and behavior. We assessed it as a dangerous individual, likely a dominant, experienced animal that had been causing repeated damage in the area. The final outcome of the night came at another trap point. Two were already caught inside. They continued to panic, slamming repeatedly against the steel frame. But outside, a few others had already sensed something was wrong. They didn't move in, just a split second of hesitation. Then they turned and bolted, disappearing into the deep forest. The sound faded into the distance, leaving behind a trap still trembling. And this is something we have to accept. No trapping system is 100% effective. The goal is to break the herd, to reduce the destruction they bring to the crops. The next morning, we returned together to check the traps. At one cage, several were still held inside. One kept jumping, throwing its full weight upward. Clang! It tried to smash against the top of the cage, but it was useless. Trying to escape, but couldn't. The next steps were carried out quickly and efficiently. We secured the cages, transported all the boars out of the farming area, ensuring they would not return to destroy another night. Everything was done according to proper procedures and legal regulations. The final stage, we proceeded with humane handling in full compliance with legal guidelines. No prolonging, no display, just what had to be done. This is not hunting. This is how farmers protect their crops, protect the work of their own hands. What do you think about this approach? As wild boar damage becomes more severe, what other choices do farmers really have?
It didn't begin in the fields or at the forest edge. It began right inside the working heart of the farm. A herd of wild boars appeared in the very spaces where people carry out their daily lives. What they left behind were overturned tables and chairs, damaged equipment, and a workplace thrown into chaos. And when wild boars grow so accustomed that every time they appear, they walk straight into human workspaces, this is no longer a story about crops. It is a clear sign that the control system has reacted more slowly than the boar's ability to adapt. The moment had come for us, those entrusted with protecting the peace of this land, to act decisively. Shall we go then? The most common mistake in wild boar management is not a lack of tools, but poor timing and flawed execution. Set a trap along the wrong route, trigger it too early, or let even a single animal escape, and the entire herd will remember what happened. From that moment on, they grow more alert, alter their movement patterns, and become willing to push deeper into human spaces. When this happens, any reaction driven by impulse or emotion risks pushing the situation completely out of control. In this situation, the goal is not to chase the animals away, certainly not to cause panic. The top priority is to stop the herd from continuing to access the work area, prevent them from scattering in multiple directions, and avoid creating additional risks for people. The chosen solution is a large coral-style trap integrated with a remote monitoring camera system. This tool allows decisions to be made based on real data, not guesswork. The camera clearly identifies the size of the herd, their approach routes, and the exact moment when the boars are least alert. In wildlife control, accurate information is just as important as the trap itself. Automatic cameras are positioned along multiple approach routes around the trap, covering the entire movement zone of the boar herd. This setup is not about catching more animals. It is about minimizing risk to people. Every decision is based on real-time visual evidence, with no guesswork and no rushed reactions. Only when the entire herd is fully within the safe control zone is the system activated. When the cameras confirm that the entire herd is inside the trap, the system is activated remotely. The automatic drop mechanism seals all exits in an instant, containing the herd within a closed, fully controllable space. No individual panics and escapes. No movement spills over into areas where people live and work. The risk is stopped exactly at the point of intrusion. This is the fundamental difference between technology-based control and traditional manual methods. Instead of relying on a single trap, the system is deployed across multiple strategic points, known travel routes, areas near food sources, and access points close to farm structures. This approach prevents the herd from scattering in multiple directions, reduces pressure on any single trap, and increases overall control of the entire area. It is a long-term control strategy, well suited to farm environments where people live and work on a daily basis.
They're looking.
A single small mistake in trap placement can turn a controlled situation into a serious threat to the entire farm. Once wild boars cross into restricted areas, what matters most is not reacting the fastest, but reacting with precision. Technology, timing, and disciplined decision-making allow risks to be contained responsibly, before people are forced to pay a heavy price. This is not just about controlling wild boars, it is about protecting safety, order, and the daily rhythm of an entire community, effectively and without unnecessary strain on human effort. When the city falls asleep, another world begins to move. Under the dim glow of streetlights, herds of wild boars emerge. They quietly cross the streets, pushing deeper into residential areas. They tear up gardens, search for food, and roam freely through places once considered safe human spaces. Videos recorded by residents reveal a troubling shift. Wild boars no longer stop at the forest edge. They now appear on city streets, inside neighborhoods, even right in front of people's homes. When the boundary between urban life and wildlife becomes blurred, the issue is no longer just property damage. It becomes a matter of human safety. When wild animals lose their fear of humans, risk begins to grow exponentially. This is not just a story about wild boars. These images raise a much larger question. How are we managing the shared space between humans and nature? And how can we protect our way of life while still preserving the balance of the natural world? Follow us as we continue this challenging journey. From before dawn, Martin, one of the most respected wild boar hunters in the region, was already at the trap site he had set days earlier. More than just a skilled marksman, Martin is known in the local community as a pioneer in using smart trapping systems to control wildlife safely and responsibly. Today's mission posed a serious challenge: a highly alert sounder of wild boar, and the team's responsibility was not to injure them, but to guide them back toward the forest without harm. The core strategy was pre-baiting, allowing the boar to become familiar with the trap site before any activation. The team used fermented corn and sweet bait, since wild boar find almost impossible to resist. Over several days, the entire sounder grew accustomed to the location and the food source, significantly increasing trap effectiveness while minimizing stress and panic. When the trap is finally triggered, the likelihood of capturing the entire group at once, rather than scattering individuals, makes the operation safer, faster, and far more efficient. Effective control does not come from haste, but from staying one step ahead. Martin uses Boar Buster, a modern trapping system designed specifically for wild boar and now widely deployed across the United States. Unlike traditional methods, Boar Buster allows an entire sounder to be controlled with a single activation, minimizing panic and greatly reducing the risk of boar scattering into nearby residential areas. For Martin, operating a trap is never just a technical procedure. Each activation is a responsible decision, tied directly to maintaining ecological order and protecting the everyday safety of the community. Before triggering the system, Martin carefully checks every factor: the trap's placement, the direction from which the boar approach, and the most appropriate moment to activate. Thanks to the pre-baiting process, allowing the boar to become familiar with the trap site over several days, when the entire sounder arrives, the system can be triggered with precision, keeping stress and unnecessary risk to an absolute minimum. Once the boar are securely contained, the team relocates them to a legally designated management area, ensuring the operation remains safe, controlled, and does not disrupt nearby residents. This is where technology, field experience, and patience converge. No rushed reactions, no loss of control, only proactive intervention to prevent damage, protect the community, and preserve balance within the local ecosystem.
Let's go, hip. Let's go, hip, hip. Get in there, hip, hip. Hip, 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 hip. Yeah, we gotta screw that to the bottom.
The operation didn't just bring wild boar under control, it restored peace of mind to families and the wider community. In a world where wildlife is increasingly encroaching on residential areas, smart, humane, and properly licensed solutions are the path towards sustainable management. Wildlife management is not a battle between humans and nature. It is how modern society brings together science, law, and responsibility to protect both communities and ecosystems. When wild boars begin to destroy, warning signs and how to trap them immediately. No one expects that after just one night, the whole field would turn into a wasteland, torn apart and devastated. Newly rooted crops are overturned, mud splattered everywhere, and fences are bent as if they've just taken a brutal hit. This is a clear sign that the wild boars have returned in packs and are expanding their territory. When the damage exceeds the ability of farmers to repair it, the issue no longer becomes about temporary scares. It's about making the right decision from the very first sign. And that's when our team quickly deployed the wild boar control plan. Through team discussions and planning, we realized that in order to solve the problem at its root, we needed to understand the creatures we were dealing with. Drawing from our experience in controlling wild boars in the US, where the species is considered an invasive threat causing severe damage, one principle is always at the forefront. Never go against the natural structure and behavior of the herd. Wild boars feel safest when moving in groups. They avoid anything that could separate the herd or force them into making sudden, stressful decisions. If one individual encounters danger, the entire herd will remember the area and change their route in subsequent visits. For this reason, small, disjointed measures often fail to resolve the issue and can make future control efforts even harder. Trap number 6 was selected due to its open space, curved structure that surrounds the herd's familiar route, allowing them to enter without feeling cornered. Rather than applying pressure, this trap serves as a tool to gently guide their behavior, leading them into a controlled area in the most natural way possible. Trap number 6 wasn't chosen for its strength, but for its ability to intervene early, before the herd can adjust its behavior. This is a long-term control strategy that minimizes the risk of the wild boars learning to avoid traps and returning with even greater destructive force. The trap is set along a predetermined path to minimize changes to the surrounding environment. The trap frames are securely fixed and camouflaged to blend in with the natural surroundings, preventing any foreign elements that might alert the herd. The bait is arranged in layers, not to lure, but to create a familiar and safe atmosphere. The entire process is focused on stability, as even a single hasty action could cause the herd to change its behavior. Wild boars are highly cautious. In the first few nights, the herd only approaches and then retreats. This is their natural risk assessment process. Without any signs of force or pressure, the boars gradually move deeper into the trap area, following their usual routine. Only when the entire herd is inside in its natural state is the intervention triggered. The The trap mechanism activates smoothly, safely controlling the entire herd without causing chaos or posing any danger to humans or the surrounding area. Controlling a herd doesn't mean the risk is eliminated. Other herds will continue to scout the area from different directions. However, with the traps already set up and working in sync, subsequent interventions become more proactive and effective. Over time, the area begins to form a risk awareness for the wild boars. They no longer see it as a safe zone to return to, which significantly reduces the likelihood of repeated destruction. Wild boar control is not a hasty action, but a process that requires observation, understanding of behavior, and making the right decision at the right time. Trap number 6 isn't just a tool, it's a testament to responsible management, balancing production, community safety, and the ecosystem. In this silent confrontation, success doesn't come from rushing. It comes from patience, knowledge, and the ability to guide behavior rather than facing it head-on. In wild boar management, true victory doesn't lie in how many boars you catch, but in preventing damage from happening in the first place.